Hello, everyone. Welcome to Their Journey, a sit down with the National Digest. I'm your host, Eric Mastrota, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Janet Smith Warfield. Dr. Warfield is an individual who has lived a life of multitudes. She's someone who's had many holistic, creative, right brain transformational experiences, and for 22 years, she practiced rigorous left brain law, protecting herself and Atlantic City from ignorant, narcissistic politicians. Dr. Warfield used her extensive experience and understanding to found the Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity Legacy Foundation and created word sculptures, an art form used to promote conscious, intentional, and respectful conversation to better the world. Today, in part one of our interview, we're going to start diving into what this all truly means. So make sure to stay tuned for future episodes as well, where we'll go even further into these ideas. But to get us started, hi, Dr. Warfield, how are you doing today?
Just trying to keep myself sane and centered in an insane world right now and in the present moment and aware.
Of course, yes. To get us started, you've spent a lot of your life thinking about how language shapes experience, emotions, and conduct or actions. And on the other end, how experiences, emotions, and conduct or actions shape language. You've also discussed how 50 years ago you had a series of mystical experiences in which you knew you had a sudden understanding and clarity. Can you briefly kind of take me through these experiences and how they led you towards the vision and mission of the foundation, which we'll also be discussing more later?
Well, I don't know how brief it'll be, but I will take you through them.
Yes.
I was about 30 years old at the time, I think, and I had three preschool sons to care for. When my youngest son was born, my oldest son began wetting his bed. And I'm sure it was because I was giving him less attention than he was used to.
Mhm.
But at first, this was the last thing I needed. I already had my hands full, two hands, three sons, three little boys to deal with. So at first I ignored it, hoping it would go away, and it didn't. And being the perfect mother, of course, every time he wet the bed, I had to change the sheets, wash them, dry them. I think at that point I was hanging them out on the line, wash these pajamas, and then put everything back together again. It was like last thing I needed. So I needed this to stop. So how do you do this? As I say, I tried ignoring it. That didn't work. I tried sitting down with Bill and having a conversation and explaining to him why a 5-year-old is too old to wet the bed.
Mhm.
He listened very attentively. He was very polite and respectful. The next morning, the bed was still wet. Obviously, that didn't work. I was getting more and more frustrated. I raised my voice. That didn't work. I think I even spanked him once. And then I realized, Janet, you are getting out of control here. So it was around that time that my mother gave me a book by A.S. Neal called Summerhill. Summerhill was an English boarding school. Uh, and Neil had some really strange ways of dealing with disruptive children in his classroom. Uh, he didn't make them sit down and write 100 times, I will be good. He didn't make them stand in a corner until they could be good. He didn't uh, tell them to go sit in the cloakroom until they could be good. He gave them a penny.
Mhm.
And I thought, he did what? Why would you? This is the way my mind is going at that point. Why would you reward a child for bad behavior by giving them a penny?
Mhm.
But I also was at my own wits' end. And the way Neil described it was when he would do that, the kids would kind of settle down and start paying attention in class and learning the lesson. So at this point, I'm willing to try anything. It doesn't make any sense to me, but I figure, okay, so nothing else I'm trying has worked and I'm out of ideas. So the next morning, the bed is wet. I didn't say a word. I just went to my wallet.
Mhm.
I pulled out a penny. I gave it to Bill and I walked away.
Mhm.
And he's kind of looking at me as if, wonder what's wrong with her this morning. This is not normal mother behavior. But he never wet the bed again.
Mhm.
And I was astounded. It was so easy. It was so easy once you knew what to do. And then a second event happened. Bill was outside in the backyard playing with a couple of his little friends. And I was in the kitchen hand washing dishes at that point in time. We didn't have dishwashers, but I was watching the kids out of the kitchen window so I could keep an eye on what they were doing and make sure that they were getting themselves into trouble. And suddenly, two of Bill's friends started shouting at each other, calling each other names. I
Mhm.
figured it was okay, time for me to go out and make my presence known. So I went out. I pulled each of the little boys aside separately, and I asked each one the same question. I said, and frankly, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of trying to figure this out as I go along. But I asked each one the same question. Do you want to fight?
Mhm.
They both said the same thing. No, I don't want to fight, but he's making me do it.
Mhm.
So I brought them back together again. And I said to both of them, well, if you want to fight, go ahead and fight.
Right.
Let's kind of shuffled their feet and looked down at the ground and looked at each other out of the corners of their eye. And 2 minutes later, they were playing happily together again.
Mhm.
Well, this is blowing my mind. All this stuff that's going on. I don't understand it, but it's somehow working well. But the third event, and this is all within a couple of months of each other,
Mhm.
right in my own home, a man came to my front door. My kids were playing in the living room. I was doing whatever I needed to do to keep the home orderly. And he was angry. And
Mhm.
he was angry with me.
Mhm.
And in the past, I might have gotten very defensive and sort of pulled back and said, oh, you shouldn't be angry over a little thing like that, or I don't know, something like that. I didn't do that. And again, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of feeling my way along. But what I said to him was, I am so sorry. What can I do to make this right?
Mhm.
And we then got into a conversation. And when he left, we were friends.
Mhm.
Now, here's the kicker for me. Why do thoughts suddenly fly into your mind out of no place?
Mhm.
I don't know whether this happens to you. It happens to me all the time. Where did that thought come from? Or, it's a memory or something else. But the thought came into my mind was a thought, an idea that I've been taught in Sunday school. Resist not evil,
Mhm.
but turn the other cheek. And I thought, oh my God, that is exactly what I've been doing. And look at the connection that has made to those words that made no sense to me as a child. Why, if somebody hits you on the right side of your face, are you going to turn the other side and say, hit me again?
Right.
Doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. But in this context, it brought an angry man back into a centered, conscious relationship with a neighbor. I don't even remember who this guy was.
Mhm.
I think he lived up the street or something. I don't remember what he was angry at. All I remember is the anger. I thought, oh my gosh, I had a sudden clarity. And I don't know whether you want to take this deeper now, but I couldn't name it
Mhm.
what it was. I just knew that suddenly it was as if my eyes were open.
Right.
Um, and I can't take it deeper unless you'd rather move on to other questions.
No, yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more on that. That sounds great.
Well, I've always been kind of a curious person, and I'm thinking, what happened?
Mm.
What name can I give to this? So I got hold of William James, Varieties of Religious Experience. His book. See, there are books that come in here and ideas and concepts that come
Mm.
into this picture, as well as the experiences. And when I read the section on mystical experiences, I thought, oh, that's what this was.
Mm.
It was a mystical experience because it met all four criteria that James listed in his book for a mystical experience. It's ineffable. There's a sense in which you can't really talk about. I mean, you could talk about it in some ways. You can tell stories, or you can try to get it out into the world. And because it's such an amazing experience, you want to share it with the entire world.
Yeah.
Um, and it has a noetic quality. You somehow just know that you know. It's
Mm.
passive. You don't set it as a goal that you're going to achieve. It's a gift that is
Mm.
given to you. And it's also transient in that it happens and then it passes again. So now I had a name, at least, for this experience. And I wanted to share it with the world.
Definitely. Yeah.
Back to you.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love how you touched on, referring to other books and works to kind of navigate figuring all of this out as well. And you often quote a saying by Alfred Korzybski, who is famous for the words, quote, "The map is not the territory," end quote. So I would love to hear from you and your perspective, how you interpret that idea and how it kind of is connecting to what we're talking about, you know?
Well, first of all, his last name is pronounced Korzybski, Alfred Korzybski. But I didn't discover his writings right away at all. It was as if experientially I was sitting as a young woman and as a child and throughout my life with a great big pile of puzzle pieces.
Hmm.
And it was as if I was trying to put them all together into one coherent picture. And one piece of it, okay, I figured that out. Let's see, what's the next piece? Well, let's see. The colors are pretty close here. Let's try this. No, that doesn't work. But finally, I had every piece of that puzzle together,
Hmm.
and my life was making sense to me. But Korzybski's piece was the final piece that completed the puzzle
Wow.
because his words, he's famous for the words, the map is not the territory. Okay. So when people were calling me names, it was their maps of what they saw. It wasn't necessarily who I was as an individual. But when you listen to people calling you stupid or whatever, ugly or dumb or whatever negative words people can throw in your face, it
Hmm.
hurts.
Yeah.
It hurts because you think, well, am I?
Hmm.
Am I stupid? Am I dumb? Um, no, you're not. Part of this whole play of Planetary Peace, Power, and Prosperity, too, is answering the question, two questions. Who am I? What unique gifts do, actually three, what unique gifts do I have to give to the planet? And then how can I use these gifts with other people in a very integrative, dynamic way to co-create planetary peace, power, and prosperity.
Wow.
So, Korzybski was the final piece of that map
Mm,
for me. It doesn't mean that I didn't still have interactions with, I'm going to use the word ignorant people
mhm.
who thought they could bully me. Believe me, born into a female body, I have been bullied lots of times or disrespected lots of times by men. I've learned to deal with that, but
Mhm.
it hasn't been fun and it's been hard. And if somebody calls you an ugly name, it hurts.
Yeah.
As long as you think there's a possibility it may be true. But you could shift that. You could shift that whole dynamic when you learn the tools and the instruments
Mm,
to stand in your own unique persona, maybe, or persona is the wrong word, but your own unique beingness, who you are. And you know what you're here to do on this planet. You know what your strengths are. You know what you have the foggiest idea how to do, and you turn it over to somebody else.
right.
Uh, but then you do what you know how to do, and you do it with as much energy, focus, and resources as you have available.
Wow.
You have to pay attention to what's going on inside of you and outside of you and be here now. You look at our logo there. When you're in that center point, which I call non-dual consciousness,
Mm,
and that is just being here now, being present, being aware, the way the Buddha was under the Bodhi tree when he
mm.
finally awakened. So, you want to move on from here, or you have
No,
other
I would love,
questions?
no, I would love to hear more too. That because this is all sounding really amazing too. I love where you're going. But
Um, Let me think. What else? Oh, I don't know. I have had just so many experiences where, particularly having been born not by choice but by chance into a female body, where I've been disrespected by men. And I'm just trying to, well, one example is when I was practicing law in Atlantic City, New Jersey,
mm,
while Donald Trump was building his first casino there was a councilman who was running for office again. And he asked me, I had contracts with the city, I was doing foreclosure work for them. He asked me to put his reelection sign in my front yard. And I said no. And I said no because I was an independent contractor and I wasn't going to take sides one way or another. Well, that got me into big trouble with him. He started making my life very difficult. He threatened to pull my contracts with the city of Atlantic City.
mm.
He was a guy who would walk around City Hall and order the cleaning lady to work faster and harder. Um, he kept asking me for more information about what I was doing, and I'd give it to him, and then, oh, well, I need more. And we're not paying you until you do what I tell you to do. And it's interesting because I went through a period when I was really afraid that I would lose my money flow. I still had children to take care of, young sons to take care of. And he was threatening to really destroy my ability to sustain my own life and that of my children. But it's really interesting. This is another shift for me where suddenly something in me changed. And there was a point when I was sitting in my own living room in the morning, and I thought, I'm really safe right here, right now. But then how am I going to deal with this abusive councilman
Right.
who's making my life miserable? And suddenly, oh, I'm down on the floor, down on my living room floor, on my knees, tears streaming down my face, saying, God help me. And this is an intellectual agnostic talking.
Mm.
What's this God thing everybody talks about? As I spoke those words, and it was God help me, as I spoke those words, suddenly this calm
Mm.
settled over me. It's really, it's very hard to talk about or explain to somebody who hasn't experienced something like this. But it felt as if together we can do this.
Mm.
And then things shifted for me. I pulled out all my files. I organized all the work I'd done for the city and the amount of money I was bringing into the city, as opposed to the amount of money they were paying me, because I was doing foreclosure work and I was cleaning up a lot of, um, houses that were falling apart and slum type parts in the city. So I was doing a lot of good work for the city. This guy didn't want to see it.
Mm.
But at that point, and he insisted I come in front of city council and explain myself. He was going to show city council how to save money
Mm. Mm.
by firing me. So at that point, I came in, and at this point, it's another shift. It was kind of as if I was standing my ground and also making my own case to all of city council as to the value I was bringing to the city.
Right.
But it's kind of almost a moral. It's very hard for me to talk about this, but it's a strength and no, you are not going to treat me this way. You're not going to disrespect me like this and think you can just bully me down and have me, move me around on your chessboard. Um, so I went into City Hall with a big fat file under my arms at this point because I had pulled together all my material. I sat in the front row and I glared at that councilman and he wouldn't look at me. It was
Mm.
really kind of interesting. And I laid out my case of, what I had done for the city and the money I brought in and the neighborhoods I'd helped clean up for the city. And then other council people started speaking up
Mm.
on my behalf. And finally, and the abusive councilman, he kept getting quieter and quieter and quieter and quieter. And when they took the vote, every council person voted in favor of renewing my contract, including this bullying councilman. Oh, and I just thought, I'm sorry, Eric, if
No,
you
don't
want to
be.
move on, but I just thought of it going back to the Polish semanticist Korzybski.
Mm.
I'm and a lot of this comes out of conversations with other people, but I've kind of expanded his idea in other ways, in new ways. He said the map is not the territory, but I elaborate and I say the words are not the experience. It's very different when you're talking about something that you're perceiving to be out there and you're actually going through whatever you're going through, whether it's a beautiful walk in the woods or whether it's being traumatized by somebody else, whatever it is, that is the experience that you are in. And talking about actually creates a subject object duality when you're talking about something out there.
Mm.
But yeah, if you elaborate on that. So the map is not the territory, the words are not the experience.
Mm.
the menu in a restaurant is not the same as savoring the amazing food. Um, Watching a huge full moon rise over the horizon in Boulder, Colorado,
Mm,
is not the same as talking about. So, a lot of what planetary peace, power, and prosperity is about is just being in the experience and then using the maps to navigate. The maps are powerful tools, but we made them up. We
mm,
created them, but they're really helpful in figuring out what do I do next here.
right. That's amazing. No, I love what you just said at the end there because before we do close off this episode, I do want to briefly touch on the foundation itself, which, like I mentioned for viewers at home, we'll also be diving much more further into in the next part of this podcast as well. But for people encountering planetary peace, power, and prosperity for the first time, how do you go about describing its purpose or meaning, or where do you like direct them to? I know it's loaded.
That depends on it always depends on context.
Right.
It depends on present moment context. Um, I've got a few props here with me,
Yeah.
which I can certainly show you. This is a little thing that I always wear. I got it when I was living in Panama for 3.5 years, and it's such a neat little gadget. It's a lot easier to have this around my neck than it is to carry a big satchel or something. Or so, and it's got all my credit cards, but it also has some bookmarks in it. So, and let's see, when I go out in the community instead of being behind a computer as I am today. Um, I wear this hat, which I don't know whether you can read it or
Yeah.
not, but it says the wrong way there, right? Okay, it says planetary peace, power, and prosperity as our logo on it, just like what's behind me.
Right.
And I also, depending on where I'm going, you see, it changes depending on context. But I also have these little bags that I will carry, for example, into a grocery store if I'm shopping. And it's the same thing that's up behind me.
Right.
Just the logo. Oh, except the logo is different. And the logo behind me is now the finalized logo. We can have a conversation about that sometime, how that evolved. But sometimes people will notice the hat or my shirt here. You see, I've got
Oh yeah.
a shirt also with the same thing logo and the words planetary peace, power, and prosperity. Some people say, "Are you kidding me?" Look at the wars all over the place, or
Mm,
some people say, "Oh, that's interesting. Uh, Tell me about that." Well, you don't tell them about that
mm,
briefly, but what I've learned to do over the years is to engage in a conversation with them. And
mm,
one of the things, if they notice on their own and they're curious and ask me about it, I will ask them another question in return.
mm,
I'll say, first of all, I can say a couple of things. I can say, first of all, I know how to do this. It's a semantic solution to all the human created suffering on the planet. Or sometimes I'll just say, I can't, if for example, it's somebody checking me out in Trader Joe's, for example, they've got a job to do. They don't have a lot of time to get into a long conversation. And um, I might just say to them, well, I can't tell you briefly what it's about, but do you read physical books?
mm,
And most people will say, well, yes, or maybe I do when I can or when I have time to. But, a lot of people don't even do that now. They just watch TV or, listen to audio or something when they're driving. But if they say yes, um, I read physical books. I say, well, would you like a free bookmark?
Mm,
And then in my little container here, which bought when I was in Panama, which contain it's got bookmarks right up in here. And the bookmark is it has the logo that is not a finalized logo, but it's what I had at the time to work with. And then on the back is just a link to the website,
right. Yes.
and which is Planetary Peace Power and prosperity.org. And I will say, well, here's a free bookmark. Would you like it? And if you want more information, go in and check out the website. I'll warn them there's an awful lot of content there, but they can
Right.
pick and choose what interests them.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I will say, from going on your website many times, yes, there is a lot of information, but it is very organized too, in where you can find very specific things if there's something specific that individual is particularly looking for as well, which is great as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh, anything else you'd like to ask? Yeah. Oh,
No. Yeah.
let me just mention about the website real
Yeah.
fast because I know the article that you just posted in the National Digest. Thank you so very much for that.
Nice.
National Digest, Mumita, you, everybody else who was involved in putting that together. Yeah, I'm impressed with that. But yeah, where was I going? I just got off thinking now. Um, oh heck, lost my train of thought. Was going off in one of those directions along one of those lines,
Right.
one of
No,
those colored lines, and I got pulled off into another one. Oh heck. Um, Oh, yeah, I was talking about the website. That website was created almost completely by a member of our board of directors, whom you actually mentioned in the article. This is where I was going with that.
right.
Duncan McClintock.
Yes.
And he was working with another gentleman with whom I've worked closely over the years, and Duncan has too, Stephen Donaco. But we all contributed. When I say we all, there are a lot of people that contributed content, different kinds of content to that website.
Right.
It's almost like walking into a big forest and you get to decide which path you're going to take, whether you're going to look down at the ground or whether you're going to look up at the sky and the sun and
Mhm.
the trees and the leaves. See, you get to choose. But there are two carousels in it. One is, I believe, of a few of our TV shows. And these things just go around the website. I don't know how they do that. I couldn't figure it out. And then at the bottom, there's another carousel that goes around, and that is partners with whom we work all over the planet. And
Mm,
what happens there is if you click on, I think if you click on the TV show carousel, whatever interests you there, it'll take you right to the TV show. If you click at the bottom on one of our partners all over the planet, it will just take you to their website. So if you see something that really interests you, you can just go click on one of these revolving, it's like a merry-go-round.
right. Yeah.
At the bottom, you click on whatever interests you or whatever you'd like to find out more, learn more about.
Definitely.
And it'll take you right to the other person's website. And the way it was originally set up was their websites are supposed then to take people who are on their websites back to our website. Not everybody has done that, but that was the original intent.
Perfect. Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely. And like I said before, the website will also be linked in the description of this episode for anyone watching or listening so they could check it out for themselves. I highly urge you to do so. But Dr. Warfield, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today and just begin diving into these topics and offering your experiences and expertise. I really appreciate it. Of
thank you so much, Eric, for
course.
giving me this opportunity. I mean, for me, this is just, it's another conversation. It's
Right.
interesting. It's fun. And it's all about, at least for me, it's all about sharing information and sharing your own skills with other people. It becomes an infinity flow of giving and receiving. So thank you.
Of
I
course.
appreciate you. I appreciate the National Digest and all the gifts
No,
you are giving to the world. Thank you.
thank you so much. We appreciate you. And, again, for everyone at home, stay tuned for our future episodes with Dr. Warfield, where we're going to expand even further on this amazing work that she does and planetary peace, power, and prosperity. And again, check out the links in the description as well. Once again, I am Eric Mastrota, and this has been Their Journey, a sit down with the National Digest. Take care, everybody.